a long time, I was scared to share my true color, to be who I truly was. I was hiding in the story I was reading, fearful of what people would think about me. But this ends now. I have stopped running. I decide to accept my diversity. Today, I will share our story of neurodiversity and mental health awareness. Welcome on the ADHD Melly Show. Hello everybody, I hope you're doing well today. It's going to be so awesome. We're going to talk about imposter syndrome and how to be authentic. When I started LinkedIn, I was so scared of people judging me. I wrote a personal story and I was so terrified that everybody would laugh at me or simply say bad things about me because of past experience that I had when I was a child, etc. And I decided to continuing doing it, and it worked. I decided to make my own TV show and talk to the public in live, making my own event. But I was not as confident as that 1 year ago, and it's something that everybody can be. And I'm not saying that I'm always confident, that I'm never scared of anything or any judgment, which is not true. And that's why I wanted to talk about that today, and that's why we have Mallory Band today. Clap your hands for Mallory. Woohoo!
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, talk to me a little bit more about yourself.
Definitely. So, I'll maybe even start off sort of with some background from my childhood and then lead up to chronologically sort of where we are. But basically, I grew up with two parents who were very well versed in the special education fields. My mom was a special education tutor for over 30 years, and my dad is still a practicing psychiatrist. So I was really lucky in the fact that my parents did know a lot about mental health, ADHD, sort of all of these things that I would soon find out, oh, okay, so this is sort of what's going on here. So at about age 8, I think it was, is when I was formally diagnosed with both inattentive ADHD and just anxiety in general as well. And it's always funny because I would always joke with my mom as I got older and I started to study education in college. And I was in sort of a mainstream classroom. I don't think I ever want to do special ed. I don't think it's something that, and lo and behold, I continued to pursue education, and through that was able to learn more about myself while also working with my clients. And it's something I've discovered that it's just a huge passion of mine. So currently I'm working as an executive function coach with Essig Education Group as a contractor and doing some of my own work as well. And really just getting excited and more comfortable about writing and speaking about my own experiences, because I think it's something that even if one person can relate to something, it's really cool to realize, whoa, there are other people that are like me or that have similar hardships or obstacles, and how do we work around these challenges and become more successful and make life easier for ourselves.
Yeah, I understand. And I'm glad that you shared your journey with others, because people think that it's normal to feel imposter syndrome, normal to feel ashamed of who you are, or ashamed, or because you get bullied when you were to school, because you try to get out of the box or simply being yourself. So you decide to stop and put a mask on because you know that this is not what the society expects of you, So what would you say to somebody that is so scared because of bad experience in the childhood? Because childhood, it can really break you up if you got those experiences, because it lasts forever, or at least in adulthood.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot to say to speak to that. I think as I get older and sort of do more of this work with others, I'm sort of doing the work with myself. So realizing that some of these things are never going to exactly go away. Like, for example, maybe even 30 minutes ago, I was feeling really anxious and nervous, even though, maybe this isn't the first time I've spoken about myself, but it just feels like, well, why does Melly want to have me here? Do you think anyone cares what I have to say? What if I say something stupid? And I think just being comfortable with realizing that you're going to make mistakes, that's sort of part of it. But if we try to hide those things, you come off as, I don't know, sort of it is a less desirable trait, I guess, to have, of pretending like you've got everything all together and trying to really overcompensate. And I think that masking is something that, we don't have to do it all the time, but I think it would be remiss to say that even people who don't have ADHD or don't have diagnoses don't mask sometimes. Everybody masks sometimes to sort of fit in with where you are, but I think it's sort of figuring out your boundaries, your comfortability with your own self, what you can do, and sort of really just kind of continuing to grow and learn from that. So that's sort of my kind of 2 cents about that. But I think with masking too, I think it's really scary because, like you said in the beginning, it's what if someone, I think it sort of goes hand in hand with imposter syndrome too. What if someone realizes that I don't belong? They're going to sort of catch me and realize, how did I get this job? How did I get these clients? How did I get, all of these things? And it's so interesting because I think a lot of it has to do with perspective, and we're often harder on ourselves than sometimes other people can be. I think sometimes it's, at least for me, I get so worried about what are other people thinking when in reality, no one's really paying attention to me. And, and so I think that's sort of, and it's helpful to sort of use that as a reframe of, you have to be okay with yourself. You have to figure out what works for you. And then you can help pave the way for other people to accept you by kind of learning how to be that authentic self and sharing it.
Yeah, and I do understand that sometimes you have bad experience, your family. I have diagnosed with the ADHD, and sometimes I feel like I've been like, with my own family didn't accept me for who I was. They was always criticized. I was always punished. I was always, and sometimes it's hard to just put yourself down because you had so bad experience. And what I would suggest is to put those experiences aside and just, those people don't know you. They cannot knock at your door and laugh at you and send you bully letters that much because they're not there. They're not physically with you. What they think, they cannot really bring it up to you. It's not like if they're physically bullying you and you cannot do anything, So give a chance and you will see that it's getting better. And even I do this for a year, my show, and I was so stressed each time. Okay, I'm so anxious that the guests won't like me, that the guests won't like my question, that they will think it's the worst experience in their life, or there's no one in the chat talking to me, and it's not that. I have a lot of people here, and I just can't believe they are people watching me and caring for what I have to say, to care about what you have to say. Right now I have Carl that is here almost all the episode. Jasmine too. I think it's our second episode she's here, and I'm so grateful that she's here as well. That she knew me from Saturday. Victoria do a Saturday challenge where you can share a little bit about yourself and engage with other people and follow them. So I build a community. Mehdi's always there as well. Juana is there for almost from the beginning, and I'm so thankful that she's here and supporting me all the time. I want to thank all those people because they mean to me. I would have stopped the ADHD Millie show if I didn't have at least 1 or 2 people that care about what I'm doing. And I want to thank you all so much today, and you're the best. And thanks so much for caring and loving what I do and supporting me in this journey of neurodiversity.
And I think that's just phenomenal that, you mentioned that we're coming from maybe different places where maybe you didn't have a ton of support from your family, which sounds beyond challenging, but you didn't just stop. You sort of, I think the most important thing, it doesn't matter exactly who it is, but you can't do this alone. I find that with ADHD and just also sort of with these insecurities and anxieties of kind of and big emotions that come along with all of these diagnoses and characteristics, is that we can't do this alone. I think sometimes we think we can go fast alone, but you can go a lot further with other people. So I think having that community just sort of kind of calms down some of the alienation, because when I was younger, I think one of the big things for me is that I didn't realize that there were other kids like me, even though, which just sounds ridiculous, even though I know my brothers both, were diagnosed with ADHD too, but that was sort of just normal because that's what our household looked like. And that was just normal for us. But I think a big thing for me is back to sort of the masking, as I would put on this, I was the star student at school and sort of was able to put on kind of this mask and keep up with the stamina and everything. But then when I would get home, I would completely melt down. I would scream, I would cry. And if I just couldn't get things done, or if I didn't understand things, I would get mad at my parents, which took me a really long time to realize I was frustrated with myself. And I think it has a lot to do sort of tied in with the perfectionism as well, of just, if I can't do it right the first time, I'm stupid. It's frustrating. And I feel like I just can't. What's even the point now? Everyone else can do it. And I think that's a big thing for kids and for adults, is that we think that everyone has this perfect life. Everyone's got everything lined up and going on beautifully. And that's what we see on social media, which is all good and well, but you don't know what's going on in someone's personal life. You don't know what's going on, with their friends, their family, their spouse, and all of this stuff that's going on. And people, it's really detrimental to try to hold it all in. And I think I finally got to the point where I couldn't do that anymore. It was just taking over my life, and I wanted to, get my life back. But I think I would be lying if I said, I 1000% don't have days where I, feel, there's tons of days where I don't feel confident. I wonder, how the heck am I going to do this? What did I just say? That was the silliest thing. I can't believe I just said that on a call, or anything like that. But I think it's okay. You're human, just like everybody else. And you have some diagnoses that make life a little bit different, but that's okay. And that's okay. It's sort of, it is what it is, but you don't know, you're never really going to get the insight into someone's life, and vice versa. So I think really being gracious with yourself, of realizing where you started, where you currently are. And yeah, we might want to get to a certain endpoint, but it really is about creating sort of this journey for yourself where you can continue to grow. Because if we were already at the endpoint, then there is no point in even being a human being if we don't have room to grow and evolve. And sometimes it really hurts to do those things, but it's always, always, always worth it in the end.
And like Jasmine said, I'm wondering how much I function in undiagnosed human out there. So there's so many people that have ADHD or autism that doesn't know, and they feel so alone maybe, or don't understand why they don't act like other people around them. So if you feel like this, you should consider to get a diagnosis, or at least see a therapist if you can afford it. I know it's expensive. Here in Canada, it takes 2 years to get a therapist. If you want to go in the private, it's going to be easier, but yeah, it can be very challenging. And I also remember the same story on my side. Homeworks, I was crying more when it was math. My mom forced me to learn the math, and I was crying. It was suffering, okay? It was torture. It was mind torture, and she wanted me to succeed, but it was not necessarily the best way to do so, because homework is hell for people that are neurodivergent, because we study all day and we are tired. It's also hard for people that are neurotypical to have homework after school. So I don't understand why they put this torture on children to make it more than what they already done, because some people don't have a parent that can help them. I'm talking about all the children, neurotypical and neurodivergent. They don't necessarily have a parent that has the time to do this, simply because they had their own day in their body, and they have to do bath and cooking and stuff like that. So they are so busy, and they don't necessarily have the patience to teach. something while they are so tired themselves. And also, parents haven't been to school for decades, okay, and they maybe don't remember how to do the math the new way, because the math always changes, the way how to do it. And so some people say it's a bad idea to take off homework, but for me it would be the best idea in the world. Just maybe only reading stuff or things like that, maybe, but no actual paper homework, because it's pain for the children and it's pain for the parent that is tired. And sometimes you need the teacher to be around you to do the exercise, because you don't understand necessarily, and you feel so bad. You feel like you're not intelligent because you cannot do your own work because you don't understand, and that lower your self-esteem, and that makes you having more imposter syndrome because you feel like you're dumb, which you're not. That's
Definitely. And I think like what you said sort of about the question asking, and like feeling like you need that extra support, that's something I see a lot too in myself, but also in my work, working with children and teens and young adults, is that it feels really uncomfortable to acknowledge, especially maybe even as a young person, and I'm certain maybe it feels different. I can't speak to, older adults, but just to recognize, I don't, at work, I don't know what you're talking about. Could you explain that further? And it just feels, can feel really uncomfortable to have to admit, I don't know what you're asking. I don't understand. Can you, and I think sometimes we sort of put that back on ourselves of saying, there's a deficit with me. I wasn't listening. I don't remember what they're talking about. I'm stupid for not knowing the first time. Everyone else seems to know for the first time what this task they're asking me to do is. But that's something that it's certainly easier said than done. But I sort of, the more I talk with my clients, the more I try to also follow the same advice that I give them too. But it's just, I was working with one of my young adult clients the other day, and she's at this job and she's the only female, and everyone's older, and they're very sort of strict, and she wasn't sure about how to do a procedure, but didn't really feel safe to ask for clarification. And then it just becomes more challenging sort of the longer we wait. It almost feels like the window's closing in on to ask that question, and just feeling really kind of internalizing that, feeling really insecure about, oh, it's my fault if I don't understand this. So I think I want us to normalize as a society of just, if someone explains something in a way that maybe it was explained well and you don't understand it, and maybe it wasn't explained well, but it's always okay to ask for help, to ask for clarification, because that just means you're being curious, you're following up, you're trying to get yourself organized. And I think that we often find that as, you're lazy, you're not listening, you're not paying attention, why don't you know this the first time? But there's nothing wrong with that. And I think just normalizing, asking for help, asking for clarification, particularly, as young adults, for how to do things that, there are plenty of adulty things that I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I got to go find someone who can help me because I've never did that before. So I think that's a wish that I have, is that we can really normalize asking for help and asking for clarification.
Because you feel like sometimes people explain you something and you still don't understand. I'm giving you an example that I have to make that desk. It was all in part and I needed to do it. And I see a plan. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I don't understand what is on this. It's just so messy, in my mind it's not clear. And that's not because it's clear for every neurotypical that is clear for us. Our brain works differently. I remember my parent explaining something and I didn't understand. Even if they explained it to me thousands of times, I couldn't understand what it means. And that's because the brain works differently, and the explanation should be different. And sometimes it's tough because the person cannot explain you right, and you feel like dumb because you don't understand, and you're just like frustrated, and sometimes you cry because you're like, why do I not understand this? And everybody does. Oh my goodness,
Definitely. And sometimes I almost think, I would have more anxiety if I don't ask right now for help. And if it's like, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, you just asked me that 5 times. It's like, okay, well, yeah, that is embarrassing, but I would feel better to ask you now and to have the answer than to get home and then panic that I have no idea, what you're asking me to do. So I think really just trying to kind of focus on, you can only control what you can control. And I find it really challenging that I think, sort of veering a little bit off of this exact topic, but still on imposter syndrome, is just that, I think it's really challenging is that I'm working on getting, kind of relinquishing control around what other people think, and always feeling so insecure in myself. And just, I think a big piece for me is, of until recently, and it is still really hard, is that, I only feel good about myself when other people tell me, good job, you did this, that was perfect, everything, excellent job on this. But it's really hard for me to tell myself, wow, I'm proud of myself for doing X, or I can't believe that I did that. That's huge growth from 2 years ago. And I think that's something that I'm really trying to rely on myself for reassurance more. And it's really, really hard.
I know.
But I think that's, something is, because people are all different, some people, which is great. But we also can't predict what people are going to say, what people are going to do, how they react and everything. So it can certainly, feel like, people have different ways to support you. So whatever that looks like is great and dandy, but I think we need to start finding ways, or I guess I'll speak for myself, need to start finding ways of feeling like I can support myself and be proud of myself without having other people have to tell me that.
Yeah, and at the same time, when you were a child, people will always say, oh, that's good, you did well, you did this, you did that, that's so good. And when you're an adult, they stop doing that. They prefer telling you when it's wrong, and you always feel like, I'm doing all bad, all what I do is wrong because nobody tells me when it's right, And we do need this reassurance because we are used to do things badly. We are used to be awful in certain things, and we are used to criticizes all the time. So it's like we're used to be bad. Well, I'm not saying that we are bad, but for others, sometimes they consider us bad. It's the same thing as keeping a job. Keeping a job is so hard because they always see the bad in you and they don't focus on the good. And that's quite hard because you're like, nobody tells you anything for the week, so you think that you did great. And at the end of the week, you're fired because they think that you were an awful person, and that's quite traumatic. And that makes me so scared of finding a job because of that. Because if they don't like me, they will fire me in a week. So all that week, I'm so stressed. I'm so anxious. I don't know if I did things right, if it's okay. I'm like, I go back home and I'm stressed out. I'm anxious. I cannot sleep. I cannot eat. I cannot do anything because I'm so scared they are going to fire me next day. And yeah.
Definitely. That, makes total sense. And I can totally relate to that. And I think something that, I try to do is really, and you can think about, I think, trying to focus on the positive past experiences, but really use past successes of, I've done something that was parallel or similar to this before. What can I extract from that experience, even though I'm scared as anything, even though I feel really insecure? But what can I do? What can I take from that past experience of, okay, maybe I was, leading up to the podcast, I was feeling really nervous. But then when I saw, the podcaster's face, I was able to take a breath. So maybe I could bring that in here. Or, maybe if it's, applying for a job of, okay, I didn't get the job last time, but now I know that I've revamped my resume. I know I've practiced. And I think a lot of this comes down to really relinquishing control and over things you don't have. And that's been something that is so, so incredibly hard. But that's something that's been really helpful in my journey of trying to get closer to being my authentic self, of just, if I can't, it's really hard when I don't have control over certain things, but that's just sort of how life is. So really focusing on, what are the things I can actually control? What are the things that are actually rational thoughts and worries? What are the things that are irrational? Because that chews me up inside and sort of takes control over everything of worrying about this and that and what if this, what if that. And half of those, 80% of those things probably will never happen. So really trying to, it is so hard for me to be in the present, but really trying to do that, because I don't want to miss out on, you know, worrying my whole life away anymore.
Yeah, I feel that. I always do the same. And what I like to do is also, I have a bunch of cards of affirmations, stuff like that. I try to always bring one every day. Now I put it on TikToks, and I just do this because, you know, I just want to feel like life is worth, I'm worth living, you know, and what I do is worth it. Like they said, they love what I do, and that makes me continue, right? If nobody was watching ever, I don't think I would have done that. Maybe I would have stopped too early as well, because I always feel that when I start something, and if it doesn't work right away, it's hard for me to just persistence and do it more, you know, and because you don't know if it's good or not. And it probably have been very terrible at first. You know, my first language is French, and I think my English been way better since day one I started this show. That's totally sure. And when you see the progress, you feel more authentic. You feel more proud of yourself. You feel more this. So if you feel like stopping a project, stopping an idea, stopping anything, or even a business, I think like that, because you feel that it doesn't work, yeah, you shouldn't do that. You should concentrate your effort on making something even better than it was before, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, that's super commendable and admirable that you know are running and doing all of these things. It's incredible. And I think, you know, maybe you didn't explicitly say this, but I think it's something that's just so important, is that whatever you want to do, you can do. But I think we need to normalize just asking, like we said before, but asking for help. So if you know, I think it's such an interesting and novel concept, but if you've never done something, why would you know how to do that thing? You know, and I think we expect, well, everyone else seems to know how to do X, I should too. There's something wrong with me. But I think there, you know, I find social media to be very kind of paradoxical in the fact that there are a lot of things that can bring forth anxiety and comparison and judgment and fear. But on the other side, you know, if you find some of these communities, you can really feel supported. And I'm so impressed with just how many people I've reached out to about, tell me about, how did you do this? Could, you know, and set up a Zoom meeting to tell me about this, or hey, could I be on your show? Or hey, could we talk about this or do this? And people are, you know, if they're passionate about something, they're willing to share their expertise. And I think that's so incredible. And I will say, like, not in a judgmental way, but I think when people don't want to help you, it's that's their own insecurities. I think that sometimes people think, if I help you, that's going to take away from my, you know, my glow and my, all of these things I have to offer. So I think it's really important just that the more we can help others, we can help ourselves, but also just like, if you ask for something and you don't get it, you don't get it, but then nothing changes. But if you do get it, then great. You would have never gotten it otherwise. So I think just sort of part of that is really embracing the fact that it might feel you know, you might feel nervous or it might feel scary, but just, it's okay to ask for help. And there are people who want you to be successful. You just have to sort of sometimes create that community for yourself if it's not already there for you.
Exactly, because I won't say I'm very supported in my family, so I felt the need of finding support elsewhere, you know, because I was like depressed and just anxious, because, you know, with pandemic, I lost mostly all of my business, and I was like so broke, incapable of paying my rent for months, you know, and it was so hard, and I felt the need to find a community to talk about it and not feeling judged, or at least they don't say, if they don't if they judge me, you know, they just don't tell. And yeah, that's a little bit why I decided to create this show. But at the beginning, it was just about talking about how I felt, what I was doing on LinkedIn, because I didn't make the show until May, you know, so I started LinkedIn in March, and I took 2 months. And after I already knew that I wanted to make something different, I know there's a lot of people talking about neurodiversity on LinkedIn. If we talk about Ellie or Leah, they are talking about that a lot, and they are big names. They have 1,000 of subscribers, and I just think that I have my own vision too. They seem to have an easier life than I did. At least that's what they show, and it may be not true, but they look like they do. So maybe I should talk also about the dark side of being neurodivergent without any support versus those people that probably or have the support around them. They've been loved and blah blah blah, and I think it was important to add that vision into the LinkedIn world.
And that's incredible. It's so vulnerable of you to share things, because I think a lot of the times, sometimes we share how good everything is, but it's not always good. It's really, really hard. And and it's true, even if you are neurotypical too, there are things that are really, really hard. And I think it's just something that people don't, I don't want it to be, a society where all we do is complain and try to say, well, I have it worse than you. But I think it can be really helpful to have a space to, vent or to share your own experiences, because I think, we crave the connection. I think that is so basic, that is so basic for all of humanity, is this, that we need the connection and interaction in some way or another, because feeling alone or alienated is just detrimental to yourself and to your success.
Yeah, and I remember pandemic. I couldn't see even my mom. My mom is not the best support for me, but she's not the worst neither, She's still my mom. And yeah, and you were not allowed to get out of your house. You got a curfew here. You had that for a month or two, and just feeling you already feel alone and hopeless, and they put you even more lonely and hopeless. Hopefully I live with roommates, but still, it's hard to just, and you see always the same people, and sometimes you just want to meet other people and share other views because you feel like you want their experience at the same time. It's like LinkedIn, they always tell you it's not about only you posting, it's also about you commenting on our posts and sharing your experience, and because it's go both way conversation. And sometimes when you have ADHD or autism, small talk is not your favorite thing in the world. I hate small talks.
Yeah.
And sometimes LinkedIn feel like small talks, so you have to force a little bit yourself to go out there as well, because it's not only about you, it's about everybody else as well. It's about the community that write on the chat. It's about those people as well. It's not only about me. Or it will be boring to always talk or monologue about myself. I don't have that fascinating life anyway.
No, I mean, I think that's, a great point. And I think that there are just so many awesome communities like the one you're creating. And I think it's just so wonderful. But just, this wasn't as, prevalent when we were growing up, when we were younger, just because there was no, like, the internet was not remotely close to this. So I just think it's really incredible that, there's so many people who are similar to you, who are different, but still want to find a space for you to feel safe, to feel like you can grow and evolve and continue to learn from each other. And I just think that it can feel really scary to take that first step of trying to, how do I enter into this community? Or I feel like what's even the point? These people don't know me. They don't know anything about me. But, sometimes you can be pleasantly surprised about what other people have to offer and how they can support you as well.
Yeah, and like you said, technology evolved. I remember it was like MySpace or Skyrock at the time. I'm making myself old right now. And you don't know, maybe LinkedIn will stop working in 10 years. Maybe YouTube will stop work. It's not possible, I think. But look at Facebook. Nobody's going on Facebook anymore, barely, And I think that even social media, the way that we communicate change over time, and that's totally fine. And you need to change with the change and you cannot stay the same because you will not evolve. It's also about you as a person. When you communicate, when you share, when you live experience, you just being you just change, and you just be, are better with those experience. You learn bad things like you learn good things, like I said on my post. I put a video on LinkedIn today, and I was like, this is the best. I had the best week of a while. I don't remember when I had that fun and that much joy in a week. And that's just because I've met so many people that I'm going probably to have a new sponsor for the Neurodiversity event that I'm creating right now. You can see it down there. And more sponsor, more speaker. And that makes me so happy because I feel like what I'm doing, it's working. I mean, people care about what I do. They care about participating. It's in September, and already people brought live tickets, and I'm so grateful because all that money is going to be used to make the ADHD militia better. And where I rent the location, they help people in needs for therapists and help to get housing and stuff like that. So I feel like what I help a lot of people at the same time with my work, and I'm so proud of myself for that. I'm so proud that I decided to go forward and they accept to host my event and stuff like that. I'm just like, yay. I was like talking on LinkedIn, and I was just going grocery shopping, and I was like I was like acting like a child, like jumping because somebody told me that we're interested in maybe sponsoring my event. I was so happy. So every little thing that you do in your life is going to come back to you if you do it for the right way.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, congratulations. That's incredible. And I think too of, you can use those sort of what we talked about too, but you can use that when you're in a week or in a day where things are not going that well, of use those sort of as touchstones or to add to your mantra, like, people really benefit from my support, or, I can do hard things. And like, though, I think that's been helpful sort of for me too, of just staying focused on what I can, stay focused on, and realizing like we're not going to make a change in a day. We can't sort of flip something over and recreate it all in one day. And that for me feels really uncomfortable if I can't do it all in one sitting. But I think that's just super important, is that, like you said too, with you're changing with the change, and it's also okay to let go of things that don't serve you anymore. So like as you continue to grow, you don't have to keep doing the same things, having the same habits. It is really challenging to unlearn some of those habits around, anxiety, around our insecurities, around ADHD, all of these things. But the great thing is you can do it, and anyone has the capacity to change. It's a simple concept. It's very hard to do. It's not easy, but it's very simple,
Yeah. You have to unlock those bad thoughts in your mind and these bad habits to move forward, because you will stay in the same position for the rest of your life if you don't decide to do something that is out of your comfort zone. If you don't do it, you will stay in the same position. Are you happy where you are right now? No? So go out of your comfort zone. Like for me, it was LinkedIn, because I didn't know what to do with my life, because I was unemployed. I didn't have money. I didn't know what to do. And I was like, things need to change, because I cannot stay in that same position for 5 years. I just can't. I want to evolve, I want to meet other people, and this is the only way for me to do it and to share my own experience, because I know that my experience is valuable. Your experience is valuable. All the experience that is in my chat is valuable. Everybody has a valuable experience, and they deserve to be shown to the public. Or at least you can put a pseudonym. You can put a fake name and go on LinkedIn if you don't want nobody to recognize you, or going on Twitter or anything like that. But just share your experience. You can go TikTok if you prefer videos. There's tons of ways to show your true self and to put yourself there.
Absolutely. And I just think it's incredible that, the more people that start to talk about these things, that are maybe uncomfortable or challenging or don't feel, maybe that aren't just talked about as much in the neurotypical world, the more that we can just normalize that. And it's just, there's space for everybody. And if, people aren't making space, then we can also, do our due diligence to educate. I think that's a big thing, is that people don't know what they don't know. There are plenty of things I don't know, and I don't even know what I don't know. But, yeah, sometimes it is ignorance and just not understanding that, brain wiring is completely different. And, no one is, you don't choose to be any type of way. This is sort of what your brain, how your brain is wired, and kind of these mental processes that are neurologically, wound and bound and all these things. And we, as humans, I think all we want to do is just to feel validated and to feel like a part of something. So that can feel challenging when not everyone understands, who you are, where you're coming from, what you need. So if that's not there for you, then we can continue to get more comfortable about articulating our needs, what works for us, particularly in work settings or in social settings or just in, doing things out and about in the world. I think that's super helpful because we can really pave the way for the future generations, and try to make things slightly, easier for younger people.
Yeah, exactly, because we can be the change for others. We are used to be excluded most of our life. Mostly when we were children, you're the last one to go in the team, etc., etc. So it's brainwashing you, thinking that you're worthless, which is not true. And we need to break those barriers that we have in your life and just move forward. So it's going to be the end of the show. I always ask my guests if you have something that you want to end off, a message or something that we didn't talk that you want to share with us today. So what do you want to share with us today before we leave?
What do I want to share?
Yeah, it's about you now.
Oh, about me. Okay. I would, thank you. Sorry. I would just say that I think it's really hard to be yourself sometimes, but it's harder to pretend to be somebody else. So you are incredibly valuable and needed in this world, regardless of what anybody else says. So I think the more we can continue to support each other and bring each other up and build each other up, the more space we're creating for everybody to have, a piece of the pie and to find their own success. And it's also appropriate and necessary to redefine your own definition of success, and create your own redefine your own expectations. You don't have to compare what you want to do to what other people are doing. It's, you are the baseline. Where is your baseline? What are your days that look really productive? What are days that maybe look less productive? And that's okay, because every day is going to look different, and we just have to be gracious with ourselves.
Exactly. Before we end, I want to say thank you to my sponsor, 0DB. I want to say that they have a very huge sale. You will see the promo code on the top of the website. If you buy one pack, you're going to have another pack free. So they are super drinks to help you focus, and they're all natural ingredients. So you can go to that website. Like I said, it's a huge sale because they're making new flavors, new packaging, and they want to get rid of the old things. Not old, but I mean the old package and stuff like that. So it's BOGO. You buy one, you get one free. So thank you again, Mallory, for being here. And I hope to talk to you soon, everybody. We'll see you next Friday. Ciao, everybody.
Thank you.